Today we're going to talk about transfer targets for Game Week 2 in VFL, and this is how this channel is going to work for the forthcoming weeks. I'll do one of these videos each week talking about players that you might want to get into your team, some teams with some good fixtures, stuff like that, and then I'll also do a video talking about what I'm going to do for my team and you know, how my team did and what it's looking like for the next week as well. So you can expect probably 2 videos a week on this channel, and that's what it's going to look like. Now for this video I am recording it before some of the games have happened, right? So I'm recording before 2G versus EG. So, you know, there's a couple Pacific games, a couple Americas games that haven't happened yet, but just keep that in mind. But for now, what I know now is these are the highest scoring players so far. So Kesnet, so far at least, is the highest scoring player of the week. You can see that with 17. This might give you a decent idea of like what a good score is, right? That 17 is probably a pretty good score. You know, a couple players on 16 there. Then you got like Valen, Leaf on 14, Meteor on 14, and we go down and down and down. If you're wondering, a couple players did only get 1 point. That was Rafa, Art, and well, his name now might need to be Demon 1 point. Yeah, obviously losing 2-0 for a game isn't going to go great. But obviously winning 2-0 or, you know, being Kesnet is going to generally give you quite a lot, because, you know, like here for MIBR, you're going to get the map points. Like G2, you're going to get 5 or 6 map points, and things are going to look pretty good. So let's talk about some of the upcoming games. Let's start with Americas, and of course, with the way that this is going to work out here in VFL for this stage 1, so let's start by talking about some fixtures. Then we'll start with Americas, and of course how this is going to work for stage 1 is generally you're going to want to bring in EMEA players, right? So that you have 8 players playing for that final game week 6. So generally you're going to want to bring in EMEA players, but of course you now might have some ideas of, you know, some things going on, right? Like for instance, for Leviathan, right, who play Cloud9 next week. For Lev, we learned that they swapped their roles, right? Like Demon 1 isn't a duelist. It looks like King is going to be playing a lot of duelists. And even though Lev didn't do great, right, you might now think, if you're going Lev, that picking up King could be a pretty good option if he's going to be playing a lot of duelists for them, right? So, you know, things like that you want to keep in mind for your transfers and who you might want to bring in. Just looking at the Americas players and players that you might want to bring in, I mean, NRG obviously lost their first game, but they do perhaps have their easiest game in Furia. I'm not going to talk like super long term with these things, because inevitably things are going to change, and you know, it's just going to go in a different way than you expect. And so I'm just going to talk about for this kind of next week players that might look good, and we'll dive into EMEA up a little bit more because of course they haven't played a game yet. But yeah, NRG, if you've got FNS like me, you know, probably, yeah, he didn't score many points, but this probably is a game where he can, you know, maybe score a couple points. Or if you've got an NRG player, I know they lost, but you probably want to hold on to them. Sen versus Crew, tough one. Again, I think if you've got players of Sen versus Crew, you're probably not buying them, but you're probably just holding them if you've got them. They're probably not a sell because you probably have some faith. I haven't seen Sen play just yet, but Crew obviously did pretty well. 100 Thieves versus EG. Again, I haven't seen 100 Thieves or EG play. EG players, I know a lot of people have started with EG players. You're probably gonna want to get rid, I think, of EG players, you know, just throughout, because after they play 2G, they're probably not going to be favored for any other game. They probably will win another game, but, you know, they won't be favored. So getting rid of EG players, you know, I know a lot of people have EG players, is probably a priority. G2 versus MIBR, kind of similar situation. Both probably just holding, you know, where you just want to hold on to the players. I wouldn't really be selling them. G2 players are kind of tough to sell because they're probably just, you know, they're going to win a lot of games, but MIBR... If G2 are going to lose a game, it could very well be this one to MIBR. Loud versus 2G, so, I mean, if you are going to go for a non-EMEA player, again, I haven't seen 2G play, so maybe they are better than I expect, but, you know, I would think, you know, some Loud players, maybe like TG's in, could be a decent option there. And then Lev Cloud9, I mean, obviously Cloud9 maybe looked a little bit better than we thought, maybe Lev looked a little bit worse than you thought. But I wouldn't be comfortable calling this game either way, so I would generally kind of avoid these teams in terms of buying their players. Okay, on to Pacific, and you've got Team Secret versus Zeta. Now, if you do have some Team Secret players, and I know there are some Team Secret believers out there, they did lose to Talon, but they didn't look that bad, so, you know, if you want to bring them in, then again, Zeta didn't look awful either against T1, so... If you've got players, this is probably if you've got players for these teams, you're feeling decent about this and you're playing them. I'm not sure I trust them enough to buy them. T1 versus Nongshin. We haven't seen Nongshin play yet, or at least I haven't. So that's an unknown for me. T1 looked okay. I mean, Meteor obviously is just very good. And I wish I had Meteor instead of Buzz, but I don't. So yeah, that was a mistake by me. But yeah, obviously T1 players are probably going to do pretty well for most of the season. Genji versus Paper Rex. I mean, a tough start here. Again, I haven't seen Genji play just yet, but tough for Paper Rex if you've got any of their players. Who, I mean, look, they didn't look completely awful, but you know, maybe that ship has sailed. DRX. I know a lot of people. Hyunmin, I think, is just a good buy. Honestly, I think Hyunmin is just a very good player to get in. If you started with 4 EMEA players and don't have Hyunmin, I think he is a pretty good option because he's going to take a lot of fights for this team. And you know, DRX do look still fairly competent, and I think we'll beat DFM and maybe even beat them 2-0. Talon versus RRQ, another tough game to call, to be honest. Again, this is probably just like hold them if you've got them, play them, but you know, you're not feeling amazing about it if you've got any of these players, and I have Primi, so you know, not amazing there. You might, if you have a bunch of good matchups, you actually might sell your player from these teams, to be honest. That's possible. Boom versus Global. Feeling pretty good about Global in this one, although we haven't seen Boom, who won, you know, a pushover, so you know, we don't know, but Global obviously had a pretty good start. But now let's talk about the most important region for the whole of Stage 1, which is EMEA, because EMEA has their own Game Week 6 at the very end. And so most of you are probably going to want to keep bringing in EMEA players. That's how it's going to work for most of this Stage 1. Now, I'm hoping that won't be the case like going forward as we do the game, you know, for Stage 2 and stuff like that. Hopefully that won't be the case, and EMEA will stick to a normal schedule. But we'll just have to see, right? But at least for this version of the game, that is how it's gonna work essentially. So we're just gonna go through the teams and talk about, like, you know, who you might want to bring in early, what it looks like, right? So let's start with Team Vitality and their games. So Team Vitality are pretty much always going to be a decent option. They do have 2 pretty tough games, week 2 and 3, but it is Team Vitality, right? Like, so bringing them in for the Giants game and then you just hope that Vitality are the best team and just win, I think is perfectly reasonable. You know, Vitality are obviously pretty good. Apex players, I mean, I've got Molsey. I'm sure Molsey, I think, was the second most picked player, so a lot of you probably have Molsey. You're probably, like, you're gonna have to play him for this game versus Giants, which isn't the worst thing in the world. You know, they could win that. Otherwise, though, they probably are just gonna be warming the bench. If you've got Floor, I mean, playing versus Navi, will you want to play versus Team Heretics? I mean, maybe, right? Floor did score a decent amount of points during kickoff because Floor does tend to get quite a few aces and 4Ks and stuff like that, which, you know, even if Apex are losing, Floor's still getting points, right? So, you know, that could still be okay, but obviously it is Apex. Let's not go crazy. For Navi, you probably don't want to bring him in this first week, but it's very possible that you really might want to bring in a Navi player for that second week to play Apex and then maybe Giants. Like, if you're planning ahead, that could be something. I know for my team, I'm thinking, like, maybe I could get rid of, like, if NRG don't look good and lose another game, you know, getting rid of FNS, maybe saving a bit of money, and, you know, you could actually do something very funny and go from FNS to Angel. Like, no joke, that could be, if you got FNS as a wildcard player, you actually could do that and it'd be quite funny. If you've got him as a Sentinel player, you'll need an extra whole 1 Valorant point to upgrade to Hero, but that's pretty gettable as well. And this is the thing, you will need to think about, like, oh, I want to get rid of FNS for Hero, you know, in this week, so I need to get the funds to fund that move next, right? So you do need to be thinking ahead a little bit for things like that, so keep that in mind. But that you could go FNS to Angel, which of course would be very funny. For Giants, I think bringing Giants in a bit later, right, for this Navi Fnatic Apex run seems like a decent option. I'd probably avoid early on, though, although I do have a Giants player on my team already. Fnatic, again, Fnatic, if you're a Fnatic believer, you know, I mean, you say that they would be favored for 3 of these 4 first games. So again, bringing in Fnatic players probably not the worst idea in the world as well, if that's what you want to do. And Team Heretics are probably going to be a prime bring in now, right? Like, bring in for this first week. They play Apex, should be heavily favored for that game, should win 2-0, you would think. You know, and then Giants is another game where you think that they should probably be able to win as well. So Team Heretics looking like a pretty good option there. In the other group is quite wide open. So I would say that this group comes more down to, like, your personal belief in these teams, right? Like, if you believe that Team Liquid will play to their best, I would ask, have you watched Team Liquid play, you know, over a long span of time before? But if that's what you believe, like Team could win this group, right? They could win 4 of these games. That wouldn't shock you. I mean, maybe even 5. Who knows, right? And in which case, if you believe that, then, you know, bringing them in early is probably a decent shout. For Koi, again, I mean, I've got, you know, a Koi player on my bench. I'm sure some people do as well, where they're probably just going to be warming the bench until this final week where they play Gentlemates, and that could be okay. For Calming Core, again, it's just like another team where, do you believe in them? If you do, then, you know, BBL Koi, Gentlemates is a pretty good start. You might want to, like, wait for Calming Core a week, right? And say, like, let's see how they do against BBL. If they look good, then I can bring them in for Koi Gentlemates and feel really good about it, right? If they get battered by BBL, maybe I'll rethink. So I think Calming Core is maybe a team where you want to wait a bit unless you're a big believer. Gentlemates is kind of similar to Koi, where you're probably just waiting for this final week. BBL is probably, again, a similar situation to Calming Core. Maybe even you wait after the Team Liquid game as well, kind of see how they do for these first 2. If they say, you know, win both of those games, then you're definitely bringing them in for Koi Gentlemates, right? We're like slamming BBL players, but they might not even be that. If you're believing BBL, and they did look pretty good during kickoff, you know, you could bring them in for this Calming Core game as well. It wouldn't be the worst. And Foot have a very nice matchup again. Foot and Heretics, I would say, you know, 2 teams that you're expecting to do well, have pretty easy games. You know, or games that they should be fairly heavily favored for in their first game. You know, Foot start with Koi Gentlemates. So if you want to bring in a Foot player, you want to get him in now, right? Because you don't want to miss this Koi game, which, you know, you're thinking should be a Foot win. And then you've got Gentlemates as well, right? So it's a really nice start. And Foot will probably one of the favorites. Again, Foot are a team you're probably expecting, what, to go 4-1, right? In this group, something like that. So bringing them in early makes sense. So that was just a quick little look at what's going to happen for this first transfer week in VFL. I hope you're all enjoying the game so far. Of course, hopefully we have many, many more weeks of this to come and give to you over the coming years, hopefully, is what I'm hoping to do. So yeah, thanks everyone for watching, and I will give you an update on my team probably on Tuesday.